Hey friends, so what I want to do in this video is I want to talk a little bit about what I've learned about personality theory recently and my own personality. I just got back from trumpet practice, so I got my horn sitting right there on the throne where it belongs. And we'll talk about that when we talk about my personality. I've learned some things about my personality that I was unaware of, actually. I had my personality typed totally wrong. And it turns out that so significantly wrong that it had me all screwed up. Because, and we'll talk about aesthetics a little bit in this video, when you're consciously creating, you have to align your act with your audience. So if you don't know who you are, if you don't know what your character in the dream is, like what your personality is, how you show up in the world, how are you really going to know who your audience is? You don't even know who you are. So when it comes to career mastery work or when it comes to conscious creation, unless you're just happy creating for yourself, which is always an option too, if you're interested in creating such that you have an audience, then this video might be right for you. And one of the things that I did recently is I deleted a video that I made. I've made a lot of my videos private, but very rarely have I ever deleted a video. The specific video that I deleted was the video that I made on personal development square one daily routine. And the reason why I deleted that video is because that daily routine that I specified in that video was not sustainable. And the reason why it was not sustainable is because I didn't know myself well enough to know that working as an employee is not what I should be doing, ever. There's a reason I became an independent contractor years ago. I prefer it. I prefer to deal one-on-one with people. I don't really like any kind of office politics or groupthink or chain of command or anything like that. It's like the people who I work with ideally are my friends, and they love me, and they know my flaws, and they tolerate my flaws, and I tolerate their flaws. And even though, every relationship is going to, by necessity, even in terms of health, contain some conflict, the relationships have sustained over time. That's who I want my audience to be. That's who I want my clients to be, is people who genuinely appreciate my act, right? So you might think of this video as aligning your act with your audience. And so there's two elements to this, I think. In the first part of this video, I'll talk about the first one. And the second part of this video, I'll talk about the second one. So the first element is you got to know who you are, because your act is going to come out of you. And then secondly, you have to know something about applied aesthetics, because your audience is going to come out of aesthetics. See, this is why aesthetics is so very important. Remember I said I was going to make a video on aesthetics? So the first thing, for the longest time, I was about half true with regard to my understanding of my personality. And I worked with ChatGPT. Well, so basically, I'll give you the 2-second or the Cliff Notes version of this. So I've been having numerous and voluminous conversations with ChatGPT on a number of topics now for probably about 2 years. And I asked ChatGPT, after I have like the premium version of it, right? So I asked ChatGPT for some advice, some kind of life coaching advice. And I asked ChatGPT to do a personality profile for me. And, it took everything into account. sort of like as we've been working together. And I was actually really surprised at the result that it came up with. I mean, I'll give you one example. So for the longest time, we're talking about personality, right? Personality, life purpose, strengths, Enneagram, instinctual variant, all these kinds of things. For the longest time, I thought that I was an ENTJ. And I was actually misled as to what my Enneagram was too. And there are certain things I got right, like my strengths are right, my life purpose is right. So there's no way that you're going to be able to find your niche, which would then allow you to hone your act if you don't know what kind of a personality you are, right? So the first step in this is to know your personality, right? The truth of your personality, and then your purpose. And then this will help you clarify what your act is. So this is part one. And then part two is going to be to clarify what it means to have an audience and what's required to entertain an audience. Okay. So first of all, ChatGPT thinks that I'm an INFJ. And this is, it calls it the advocate, the visionary guide. Basically, it says INFJs are known for their ability to see deeper meaning behind things, act with integrity, and guide others toward growth and transformation. So, those of you who don't know, the theory is MBTI is based on Jung's theory of psychological types. And this basically is like a lens through how we perceive the world as a jiva, right? As a in the dream, as a character. So Joseph Maynard in the dream as a character has this kind of form. And so the INFJ, I, introverted, draws energy from solitude and reflection. N, intuitive, focuses on patterns, future possibilities. F, feeling, makes decisions based on values and empathy. J, judging, prefers structure and long-term planning. So the cognitive functions here, those of you who know, cognitive functions are basically the atoms of the MBTI. Actually, they're more important, in my opinion, than the actual four letters are. So the cognitive functions are, this is my dominant function, is introverted intuition, which makes a whole lot of sense. So it drives long-range vision, depth, and insight. And then my second cognitive function is extroverted feeling, seeks emotional harmony, connects with others. Man, see, as an ENTJ, I assumed that my number one was TE and my number two was NI. This is totally different. Actually, my number one is NI, which makes a lot more sense. I mean, I talk about intuition all the time, right? I mean, and then my third is introverted thinking, internal logic, precision, and understanding. And then 4 is extroverted sensing, engages the present moment when needed. So it's telling me that based on my MBTI, career implications of this are INFJs thrive in meaningful, creative, and high impact roles that allow them to mentor, counsel, strategize, and build toward a better future. So I want to let you guys know that just as a side gig moving forward, I mean, I'm basically a freelance paralegal. I'm going to make my money that way probably for the rest of my life, just because it costs so much money to live here in San Francisco. I can't make that kind of money probably coaching. But as a side gig, I'm going to start coaching, because I think I'm at the point where I can help a lot of people with this kind of work, career mastery work, conscious creation, spiritual enlightenment guidance, basic self-help stuff, accountability, partnering with people. And, if I did do it, I would only charge the same hourly rate that I do as a freelance paralegal. So it wouldn't be ridiculously expensive. And, we could do like Zoom calls, phone calls, or whatever, and I'll find a way to be able to accept payment. But I think that, plus that would benefit me, right, to work with other people. And it would give me a little bit of a way to make a little bit more money, which is always helpful. So that's basically the MBTI. So instead of an ENTJ, I'm actually an INFJ. Now, in terms of my Enneagram, the funny thing about this one is actually I had this right. And I went to somebody who understands Enneagram theory, and they typed me totally differently, so it kind of threw me for a loop. And it's funny that ChatGPT actually typed me the way that I initially typed myself. So ChatGPT typed me as a 4-wing 5. And so this is the individualist with the thinker's edge. So the Enneagram is a system of core emotional motivations. Type 4s, which is my type, seek authenticity and depth, while the 5-wing adds intellectual curiosity and independence. So it makes a lot of sense. So the core desire of my type is to express unique identity and find deep significance. And the core fear of my type is being emotionally flawed, unimportant, or inauthentic. Career implication. You flourish in work that allows deep creativity, philosophical inquiry. I majored in philosophy in college, and a degree of solitude. You bring originality, empathy, and mental depth to every project. And my instinctual variant is sexual social. So the theory here, the instinctual stack represents your fundamental drives. So sexual is my number one, which is feels intensity, seeks intensity, fusion, chemistry, and purpose-driven connection. Social seeks belonging, contribution, group influence, shared ideals, and self-preservation. This is my blind spot, right? So you always have one that's kind of in your blind spot. So self-pres. I'm less concerned with comfort or physical security, right? Like, I'm willing to be poor and happy, right? Instead of rich and miserable. So I already knew that one was right on the money. And then my top 5 character strengths. These are my strengths, and I have 4 that fall under the virtue of wisdom and 1 that falls under courage. So my 5 character strengths in no particular order are curiosity, love of learning, perspective, creativity, and bravery. So it says, the implication is you are built for insight, exploration, storytelling, and bold truth-telling. Your gifts lie in reframing the world for others and helping them see clearly. That's dead on. Now, my life purpose, which I determined through Leo Gura's life purpose course many years ago, is to deep dive issues and projects to help myself and others accept themselves and others through the use of the mind. And this purpose integrates intellectual rigor, emotional intelligence, and deep compassion. You're here to guide, decode, and transform through mental clarity and relational resonance. That was ChatGPT's comment there. And so it says summary statement for career and niche alignment from ChatGPT. And this is what it tells me. It's kind of like it put it into a mantra almost. I'm an INFJ 4-wing 5 with the sexual, social, instinctual stack. That means I'm wired for deep, soulful, creative work that transforms people and systems. I need meaning, freedom, and resonance. My ideal career path blends emotional insight, big picture strategy, and authentic expression. I don't just do work. I pour myself into projects that matter and elevate others along the way. So what I'm going to do, friends, I'm going to take a break. I'll come back and we'll do part 2 of this video. And we'll talk about that. See, what we just did is we did the first part, which is, first of all, you have to understand your personality so that you can understand what your act is, what your gig is, right? Then you have to understand how you can create an audience that actually appreciates your act and your gig and ultimately is going to give you money, right, in that relation. You pay for art, right? You pay for artworks, but only if there's value that's created from the artist. So I'll come right back. Just give me 1 second. All right, friends, welcome back. So those of you guys who are nerds with the Enneagram theory, my tri-type is actually type 9. So I'm a 4-wing 5, and my 9 is in my tri-type, which is the spiritual one, which makes a lot of sense too, right? But really, it's just the main one and the wing that are the most important for Enneagram. Just like an MBTI, really the first 2 are the ones. Like the first one is like your dominant function, and the second one is your helping function. So your helping function helps your dominant function. So for example, extroverted feeling for me helps my dominant introverted intuition. So let's talk about aesthetics, and let's talk about not just your act, but your audience. So first of all, aesthetics. I worked with ChatGPT. So I had probably hundreds of pages of conversations with ChatGPT on aesthetics, because I've been threatening to make a video on aesthetics for a couple of videos back now. And so I'm trying to deliver on that. And it's been really a labor of love for me to learn. So the first thing is why aesthetics matters. So artworks must satisfy. The senses don't lie. Aesthetics is the craft of balancing meaning or story and message and form, sound, flavor, image, to create a memorable experience. I used to call this a trip. So a conscious creator creates a trip for another. So aesthetics is, in terms of act and audience, it's the link between the actor and the audience. So genres are here. So for example, making a video has a certain kind of vocabulary to it. There's got to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. Giving a speech has a certain kind of vocabulary to it. Any kind of artistry, whether it's cooking, whether it's stand-up comedy, whether it's storytelling, whether it's socializing, is really a form of artistic creation as well. All these have a vocabulary that you have to adhere to. You can't just totally act outside of the rules and really expect to have an audience to your act. So one of the key things is that when you're looking to create an audience, you have to on some level, even though nobody likes to be typecast. I used to have a friend in college, his name was No Label, because he didn't want to be labeled. No matter what you do, you're involved in some kind of a genre which has a vocabulary to it. So, for example, making a video has a certain kind of vocabulary to it. It has certain tropes to it. You have to have the lighting. You have to have the background. You have to have eye contact. You have to have decent, decent recording or decent camera. You have to have decent sound. Or else the dog isn't going to like the dog food. And if what you're looking, I'm not calling anybody a dog, I'm just saying that this is the way artistry works. Artworks must satisfy. The senses don't lie. When you eat a great dish or listen to a great piece of music, the reason why it's great is not entirely happenstance. It's because it follows certain principles. So genres as vocabulary, as shared languages for creation and communication. So you can't just wing it. So, for example, nothing sounds worse than going to, like, people like jazz. But most of the time, people like jazz when it sounds like it's composed, even if it's not. Nobody really wants to watch a bunch of amateur musicians just kind of noodling around on their instruments, pretending like they're playing jazz, right? There's something perfect in art. Like when you eat a perfectly cooked dish, all of the elements come together and there's nothing that's overpowering. It's like a beautiful symphony, right? It's what we call beauty. Form, harmony, and these kinds of things. So I think one of the first things you have to realize, once you decide what your personality is and once you decide what your act is going to be, what you deliver to your audience, it has to be top shelf. You don't want to be mediocre. You don't want to be selling horrible pizza slices to people. You want to be selling the kinds of pizza slices that I had when I was in Italy, right? Even if you only have like 5 customers. Why? Because you value aesthetics. Even if you have a smaller audience, you have higher standards. You don't need to be rich. It's actually better to be less wealthy and to be more integrous with your act, like such that you enjoy your act yourself. You would do it for free, and your audience loves it. They love you, and they want to give back to you. They want to pay you money even. They want to give you love back. That is career mastery. That's the kind of alignment that you want to have between personality theory, your life purpose, and this kind of applied aesthetics. You basically, you learn the grammar and then you improvise. It's like writing or making a video. I'm not great at making videos, but I'm going to tell you, the reason why I'm pretty good at making videos now is because I've been doing it since 2019. So, 6 or 7 years now. I should be a lot better than I am. But just in terms of balance, right? Like, look at the background, right? It has a balance to it, right? Because I'm aware of that harmony, right? I'm aware of the harmony of the whole thing. I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, and there's a lot that I can still do to improve. But, there's a logic that goes into making a video. Or I might call it a grammar. And then once you learn the grammar, then you can improvise because you know the rules so well that you can compose on the fly. And it sounds composed. It looks composed, but it's totally improvised. And this is exactly what good jazz sounds like. Good jazz does not sound like a bunch of amateur musicians noodling around on their instruments, jerking themselves off, right? With each other's nonsense. Great jazz is totally improvised, but it sounds composed. In fact, you could score it, actually, because a great jazz musician is basically reverse engineering classical music, and they've embodied the elements of music, and they're just putting them together on the fly. It's like on-the-fly improvisation, kind of like an improvisational comic or an improvisational chef. So the way that I cook, I'm actually getting more into cooking, is I'm an improvisational cook. Like, I hate recipes. But what I do is I try to learn the elements of cooking. crunch, herbaceousness, fat, acid, sweetness, umami, so that I can take anything that's in my refrigerator and actually whip it up into an amazing dish. Even if it's just cabbage or rice and beans or cauliflower or, anything, broccoli. You can turn eggplant, you can turn any of these dishes into an amazing experience if you learn how to create a sauce. It's like a salad. A salad dressing is basically a sauce. And so you can take this boring old lettuce, boring old salad greens, boring, whatever, and concoct an amazing salad dressing and turn that into a dish that eats like a meal even. You ever had a really nice Greek salad, right? Or, a Caesar salad with chicken or something like that? That eats like a meal, even though it's very simple, because that sauce, that dressing is the bomb, right? But you have to learn how to cook, and you have to learn how to layer together flavors so that it works like a symphony. And the taste doesn't lie, right? It's like Louis Armstrong used to say, if it sounds good, it is good, right? So ultimately, like whatever genre you're in, like if it's a video, it has to look and sound good. If it's music, it's got to sound good. If it's food, it's got to taste good. It's got to be delicious, right? For food. It's got to be delicious. You know what deliciousness is. And when you cook, you're going to make mistakes. Just like when you make a video, you're going to make mistakes. When you play jazz, you're going to make mistakes. But over time, you learn how to simplify and build profiles, flavor profiles, or music sound profiles, or video sort of, profiles in terms of structures or tropes that you use as an artist to structure so that you can improvise and it looks composed. And so I think one of the first things you have to do is you have to self-correct. None of us come into an art form being an expert at it. If you've been playing jazz for 10 years, I'll guarantee you that you are a much better jazz musician today than you were when you first started. Hands down, right? You don't have to be a rocket scientist to realize that. But you have to be willing to actually embrace the genre. You can't be a no labels person. You can't be somebody who's like, I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. I'm just going to turn the video on and start making a video. That's not going to be top shelf. Or I'm just going to just do whatever I want on the bandstand. I'm not going to adhere to time. I'm not going to adhere to the chord progression. I'm not going to adhere to the melody of the song, to the form. I'm just going to noodle around, right? Rhythm is going to be off. I'm not going to be swinging the rhythm. I'm going to be totally clashing, and I'm not going to be resolving properly. Nobody's going to like that. The audience is not going to like. It's going to sound awful, just like food that tastes awful, like the slice of pizza that I had up the street the other day. I wanted to throw it away. I was like, dude, it's bad enough that we pay a fortune for food, but when it's horrible, right, that makes it even worse. And this is one of the reasons why I just said to myself, not only can I save money getting back into cooking, and I'll make some mistakes, it'll be a challenge, but I'll actually be able to eat a lot better too, because, at least I have an amateur's touch when it comes to building flavor, layers of flavor, right? And I know what I like. So, okay, friends, so hopefully this video was a nice introduction to aligning your act with your audience and realizing that you do need to build this relation there. You need to work on your act, and you also need to work on what is your audience getting from your act, and then how can you perfect those artworks that you're giving to your audience by understanding the aesthetics of the art forms that you're communicating to your audience. So hopefully this was a good video. I'll talk to you in a week. Take care.